is Terry Bradshaw, quarterback. Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
This is baseball, Major League Baseball. And this is
ABC's Monday Night Baseball, live from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts.
Looking. He's under the gun. He's tied. He throws. It is.
Randy Jones is on the cover of Sports Illustrated July 12th, 1976, and 50 years later on the Past Our Prime podcast, we're talking about one of the more underrated great seasons in baseball history. Hello, everyone. Thanks again for giving us a listen. I'm Scott Johnston, and along with Bill Mahoney and Mark Hoffman, we do this every week where we look back at the world of sports from half a century ago and see what Sports Illustrated was talking about. And Mark, this week, they were talking about a left-hander in San Diego.
They sure are. Randy Jones. What's that song that was popular around the time? Me and Mrs. Jones? Oh, this is Mr. Jones. And Randy couldn't throw very hard, but man, could he pitch, especially during that 2-year period in 75 and 76. And the cover of Sports Illustrated is just so fantastic because you see the ball coming right at you after being released from his arm. And, the caption's threat to win 30. Which, hadn't been done since Denny McLain did it in 1968. And he was well on his way to, reaching that goal.
Yes, and Bill, some of Randy's games were shorter than this podcast.
Oh, gosh, yeah. It's not just the games were shorter. Sometimes he pitched like a minute. I think one was an hour 29. He would throw like 80 pitches in those as well. It's just, absolutely amazing to think of where baseball is now that a guy like that throwing not too fast, 80-some pitches, an hour plus game, amazing.
More on Randy Jones and his great Cy Young Award-winning season of 1976 in just a bit when a good friend and someone who knew Randy very well joins us, Padres Hall of Fame broadcaster Ted Leitner. You are in for a treat when Ted talks. But first up, the scorecard. And Mark, we talked a couple weeks ago when Sven Nader was on the show about the ABA-NBA merger, but how's that going to look now with the realignment?
Yeah, so they've got it divided into an Eastern and Western Conference, but 2 divisions, an Atlantic, a Central, a Midwest, and a Pacific. So like the 2 of the divisions have 6 teams and the other divisions have 5 teams. So think about it, there are 22 teams in basketball, not 30 like there is today. But I find fascinating is the divisions make much sense. The Spurs are actually in the Eastern Conference, not the West back then. But again, it's just interesting to see these teams and how they aligned them up. Like the Atlantic makes perfect sense. You got Boston, Buffalo, the 2 New York teams, the Knicks and Nets, and the Sixers in Philly. That makes sense. The Pacific, perfect sense. Golden State, LA, Phoenix, Portland, Seattle. So, these divisions actually make sense.
Yeah, the one thing that jumped out at me, even as a kid, I always thought this was weird, is that, if you win your division, you get a high seed. And I'm like, well, one division has 5 teams, one division has 6 teams. It's not fair that the 5 team, they only got to beat 4 teams. The other one has to beat 5 teams. But, that they rarely have had. What do we have in baseball now? We have 6 divisions of 5. Is that right? I think that's right.
No. Yeah, there's 3 divisions in each conference. Yeah,
right.
That's 30 teams.
Yeah. So anyway, hey Bill,
what?
Besides bridge, maybe canasta, but chess is your game.
Oh gosh, yes. I never miss a match, but the computers are coming, and they were in 1976. Maybe not as great as they are nowadays. But Hans Matthefer, he's a West German minister for research and technology, defeats a computer in chess. He wins game 1 in 26 moves. He wins game 2 in 39 moves. The computer resigned in game 3 because of a technical failure. So even the computers fall when they're losing. But there is one quote that was made. I think he says, Mothifer says, you have only to attack sharply and the computer gets scared.
Mm.
Yes. Didn't they do that on, was it Jeopardy? Computer Jeopardy?
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I think there was a one where they I think it was the Ken Jennings, I think, beat the computer.
Man. AI before there was AI.
Yeah.
Yep.
A friend of mine said the other day he went and he was in Pittsburgh and they had a big event where you could play air hockey against a computer that controlled the goalie and no one could get a goal. And he said, so I waited my turn, finally got up there, and he goes, I scored once, and right after that, the computer broke and everyone behind him was pissed off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, said everyone was mad that I scored a goal. He goes, that's the name of it. He goes, well, for whatever reason, I was able to score. But right after that, they said the computer's broke. We need to fix some things in it. So yeah, the computers are sore losers.
Apparently
Yeah.
so. It's like playing a 6-year-old.
Yes.
You know what the greatest movie about computers and AI is?
War
It's War
games.
Games.
Yeah.
Exactly, where they have to teach the computer tic-tac-toe in
That's
order
right.
for them to realize that
Yeah.
nuclear
Do
war,
you
there's no
want to
winner in
play
that
a game?
Yes, yeah, right.
Very underrated movie. Yeah. I got a couple. Remember this one from last week, the Detroit Tigers Bat Day fiasco, which involved
Yeah.
handing out bats of long departed players due to ordering issues. Well, that was minor compared to what the New England Whalers' disastrous jacket night on January 28th, when they could only give out 4,000 green Whaler jackets to a crowd of just over 10,500 people at Hartford Civic Center. Listen to this. The disappointed fans received rain checks, but the replacement jackets didn't arrive until June 25th, almost 5 months later, well after the season had ended. And shockingly, they featured Oakland A's and Milwaukee Brewers logos from the wrong sport. It's just like they were like, give them a jacket. They'll never know. Kid's like, I can't go to school wearing that. I want my Whalers jacket. Take the Brewers one and shut up, you little brat. Yeah, and one more from the scorecard. The binding nature of Charlie Finley's sale of Vita Blue to the Yankees and Joe Rudi and Raleigh Fingers to the Red Sox remains unclear, pending the outcome of Finley's $10 million lawsuit against Commissioner Bowie Kuhn, which begins in early August. The Yankees consider the deal binding due to a signed written agreement with Finley, believing they will owe Blue $1.5 million if the court rules in Finley's favor, while the Red Sox view their verbal agreement as non-binding and say they would need to renegotiate entirely if Kuhn's decision is overturned. So that's going to be difficult to figure out. Finley did not seek an immediate injunction to allow the players to join their new teams temporarily. When asked why he did not seek an immediate injunction, he said, "It's none of your goddamn business." So he seems to be taking it well, as he tries to sell off those valuable pieces of Oakland A's from that dynasty. They said it. I'll start off. Vita Blue, Oakland A's pitcher, embroiled in the Finley Kuhn fiasco, says, maybe if Oakland and the Yankees meet in the playoffs, I'll just stay on the mound and pitch for both teams. So he's taking it in stride, hoping that he's just going to get paid by somebody. Let's stick with baseball. Mark, Rocky Bridges, old manager in the PCL.
Yes, he's a manager of the Phoenix Giants, and after finishing second in a pregame cow milking contest, he said, "I didn't try too hard. I was afraid I'd get emotionally involved with the cow," which is my problem. I have that problem all the time.
Yes.
Better move on.
Right. That's like the guys who go to the strip clubs and are like, I think she really likes me.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think she likes your wallet. Now let's talk instead, Bill, about Ken Singleton.
Ken Singleton, one of my favorites as a kid. He was watching Brooks Robinson in an old timers game, says, my bubblegum card just came alive.
Right?
So true. And I was the only one who ever eaten that bubblegum, but I liked it.
I mean, if he made that comment right here and now, Brooks Robinson's bubblegum card's about to be put to rest because he's about to hang up those cleats. Great Heavenly Days by Curry Kirkpatrick. Welcome to the world of Wimbledon and Bjorn Borg. He wins his first Wimbledon title at just 20 years old. Mark, this is the beginning of Borg's run at Wimbledon, and he did it in style.
Yeah, 20 years old. He's the youngest in 45 years to do it. He beats Nastase 6-4, 6-2, 9-7. And what is so amazing is that Borg did not lose a set in the entire tournament. That's crazy.
He was really coming into his own, and this was his first.
He seemed like he never lost.
Yeah, he just owned Wimbledon from this point on.
Because he won the next 4 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, winning Wimbledon 5 times in a row.
Bill Nastase got off to a good start, but it turned quickly. Bill, he beats Nastase, but that wasn't a shoe-in because Ely had his way with Bjork prior to this.
He did. Through their first 10 matches, Nastase led that series 7-3 and dominated in good parts of that. But Borg obviously came into his own and won 4 of the last 5 that they played in. Plus, that was 4 finals. So Borg was obviously coming into his own. Nastase was a hair older, wasn't he? 10 years older, wasn't he? 30 in this issue. So yeah, so it sounds reasonable, but it reminds me a little of Everett Navratilova. Wasn't Everett? She dominated Martina at the beginning, and toward the end of their time, Martina was winning 3 out of every 4 times.
Oh yeah, yeah. At one point, Chrissy had a huge lead in their head-to-head matchup, and by the time Navratilova caught up to her, she had overtaken that by quite a bit. Jimmy Connors was giving Illy Nastase a little bit of the business during this run in Wimbledon.
Yeah, there were times, we knew that Jimmy Connors and Ilie Nastase, they were friends. They were sort of the same type guys. But after the match or it was actually during the 3rd set, someone talked to Jimmy Connors and he mocked his buddy, said, "I never saw a guy tank the Wimbledon final before. Thanks, pal."
That's because Nastase led 3-0 in the first set. He had 3 break points to go up 4-0 in the first set, but Borg figured out what was going on, ends up winning that set 6-4, then the next one 6-2. Doesn't look like Ilie Nastase just tanked it because the third set goes 9-7, so that shows that he was giving it some, but he drops in straight sets to the winner, Bjorn Borg. What about over on the women's side?
Chris Everett beats Yvonne Goolagong 6-3, 4-6, 8-6. I think I'm completely wrong on that. So please check that. I think
that's right. That's right.
6-3, 4-6, 8-6. That's right. Okay, thank you.
That is correct.
That was her first Wimbledon single title. And mind you, Goolagong had been playing really well. She had never Everett had never beaten Yvonne Goolagong on grass, and she did. So nice for Chris Everett to get her first Wimbledon singles title. But the problem that we talked about is the end of this magazine, they do a whole setup of Borg Nastase, and maybe the last teeny paragraphs is talking about Everett Goolagong.
Little more tennis, and let's talk about Billie Jean King, who I had forgotten basically retired from singles competition at Wimbledon or on the tour in 1975, but she was still playing doubles here in 76. And Bill, she gets to the finals.
I mean, you're talking a woman that obviously gave up tennis and is still able to get to the Wimbledon finals, which is absolutely amazing to be where she is and be able to do that. But she lost to Martina Navratilova and Chris Everett. So Everett won the singles and the doubles, beating Billie Jean King and Betsy Stove. But King, she only came to Wimbledon to play doubles to enjoy herself and prepare for world team tennis.
Yeah, think of that. She's using Wimbledon as a place to get ready to play team tennis. How the world has changed.
Yes.
In that regard. And yeah, think of that. Martina and Everett teaming up to win a doubles final at Wimbledon. That's pretty great stuff right there.
And that's star power with having King, Navratilova, and Everett, and Betsy Stove was no slouch herself. So I mean, that's star power to the umpteenth degree.
No question. Uncommon success for a common man as we get to our guy on the cover. Randy Jones, the hottest pitcher in baseball in the summer of 76. I think he was 16-3 heading into the
Hmm.
All-Star break. And Mark, despite a fastball clocked at about 30 miles per hour, his control was really what set him apart.
That's right. He had just tied a 63-year-old National League record. He'd gone 68 innings without walking a batter. That is crazy. And in his first 20 starts, he had 14 complete games. You can't get a pitcher to throw one complete game these days.
Yeah.
So I mean, he was 16-2 going into the All-Star break, and in 1968, the last person to win 30 games, Sandy McLean, I think had 15. No, I think it was McLean. McLean was 16-2 going into the All-Star break in 1968. Randy Jones was at to 15, so he had a shot to do it. So Randy Jones was a legitimate threat to getting to the 30 wins. But, it's a grueling season and, it's hard to duplicate in the second half what you do in the first half.
Yeah, and you're pitching back then they had a lot of four-man rotations, so I think Randy Jones had 315 innings pitched this year. So he just pitched a lot, a lot, a lot. And even though his second half wasn't as good as his first half, one loss wise, he still pitched very well. Bill, his dominance was so complete that some of the greats had a really hard time hitting him.
Yeah, and Mike Schmidt, he was, well, I'll go to Pete Rose first because Pete Rose, I think, hit like 178 career against him. Pete Rose said he once stepped out of the batter's box and yelled, "Why don't you just go warm up, then come back and throw the ball?" And then Mike Schmidt went one step farther. He said, "If I were a pitcher, I'd be embarrassed to go out there with that kind of stuff." And then Randy Jones responded by shutting out the Phillies twice.
Yeah. And yet there was one guy, and it's always like this, right? So, Pete Rose can't figure him out. Mike Schmidt can't figure him out. All the greats can't figure him out. But there's this one guy in with the Mets that has pretty good success against him.
Yeah, a guy that is actually in our articles, people don't like him. But John Stearns, Randy Jones on the mound. Oh, you're playing Stearnsy. He's 12 for 23, which is a 522 batting average with 2 home runs. So he owned him.
Yeah. Yep.
It's always that. It's always the no-name player that has the other the Hall of Famers number. It's never the star player.
A living legend called Mean Smiling Jack Lambert, already a Super Bowl champion and Rookie of the Year after his first NFL season, yet was deeply unsatisfied with his performance. I can see why, saying there wasn't a single game where he didn't make glaring errors and set his sights on playing without any mistakes at all. He was tough on himself. And Mark, what did Mean Joe Green have to say about his teammate?
Well, he said he was so mean that he doesn't even like himself. Uh,
That is a great shot, a quote.
It's funny in the magazine though. They have a picture of him lifting weights, okay, and then below is a picture of him at middle linebacker, looking at Roger Staubach like he wants to eat him. But in this picture, okay, so as a football player, I always thought he was missing his 2 front teeth or something, kind of like, which made him intimidating. But in the weightlifting picture, looks like he's got teeth in there in the front. So I'm wondering if he just took his teeth out for football games.
Yeah, or
But
maybe lost them a little later on in his career, but he definitely didn't have the teeth and played that up as looking like an insane person was about to
right,
come and
right.
get you.
But if you look at this weightlifting picture, you can clearly see there's 2 front teeth there, so they're probably caps. And I do have a beef with Sports Illustrated. Would they stop photoshopping my body on these athletes? Okay, it just is really, it's I'm going to file a lawsuit. I'm
Yeah.
sick of it.
Yeah, this picture of Lambert with Hoffman's body on it,
Yeah,
you
Yes,
can
you
see
can
why he
tell
has
it's
my
obviously
six
not
packs.
Lambert. You can tell. That's Mark.
Yeah, veins in
Come
my arm and
on.
shoulder. The veins
I've
there
seen
and
Mark at the
the six
beach.
pack.
The guy's a
Yeah.
beefcake. Jack Lambert
When
was
I'm not
fat and out of shape.
If Jack had
but
Mark's body, you could see why he wouldn't like himself.
Yes.
Now, it's funny as I go to the beach, I take my shirt off, and the screams go, "Run,
Yeah.
run! It's Wayne leaving!"
At 218 pounds, Lambert was giving away 20 pounds to opposing players almost every time he stepped on the field. So he wanted to put on a little bit more weight, Bill, because that slight build they thought might lead to some injuries.
Yeah, yeah, they're really concerned about it. Well, here's reality. He missed only 7 games before his final season. He was the Defensive Rookie of the Year. He was 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, and he went to 9 Pro Bowls. Yeah, that's right. Those injuries stopped him, that little body,
Yeah.
or Mark's body on his head.
I mean, one of the things that's great about this magazine when we do this is back then, Jack Lambert was like, oh, yeah, this up and coming young kid. He had a good rookie season. Steelers are good. Not, you never know that you're talking about one of the all time great linebackers on one of the all time great teams. And you're right, Mark, with the teeth and everything. I mean, he just became an iconic symbol of the NFL from the 1970s, Jack Lambert. So I love that when you go back because you have to, history you don't know how history is going to play out. We have the luxury of going back and looking how it played out. And Lambert, man, was he something. He said what his proudest moment was, prouder than the Super Bowl rings, even. We all made all pro last year. Jack, meaning Jack Ham, and Andy, meaning Andy Russell, and me, all 3 of us. That's the first time in history that all 3 linebackers came from the same team. So, yeah, you can see why their defense was pretty good.
I want to say that going back 50 years, and I'm not criticizing nowadays, but you ever notice the guys we talk to from 50 years always talk about team?
Oh, yeah.
Remember when we interviewed Phil Ford? He would not talk about himself. He would only talk about team. Kent Benson always talked about team. Bobby Wilkerson. We read about Jack Lambert. Nowadays, it seems like there's a lot more focus on individual. Back then, it just seems like everyone was saying, what's good for the team is good for me.
Yeah, no question. And I think also, especially in the pro ranks, winning back then meant that you got more money.
Yeah.
And so the team benefiting and doing well benefited you money wise.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they don't still think that way, but if you're making, no one cares what the World Series winner gets anymore or the Super Bowl winner. It's chump change compared to their salaries. So the team success doesn't have that kind of impact on the individual success anymore. I wonder if that plays in somehow. TV, radio, anyone for too much tennis. Tennis had exploded on American television by 1976, growing from 2% of major networks sports airtime in 1971 to 13%, and from 7 events and 30 hours of coverage to 70 events and 225 hours. But the networks were already planning cuts of up to 50% for 1977 because ratings were tumbling badly. Mark, is there such a thing as too much tennis?
No, and what would they think today of that there's actually a channel devoted to nothing but tennis? And I worked a little bit at the tennis channel. So, I mean, it's the whole thing. Sports is just everywhere now. It's not just on like ESPN, but it has its own channel. It's on streaming services. And then people, get on their computers and you can watch tennis at any time. You can watch an old event, an historical event, a current event. I mean, it goes with all sports now. It's everywhere.
Yeah. I'm not sure it's better because I never turn on the tennis channel ever. I've never once done it. I don't even know if maybe I don't even get it. I have no idea. Whereas when it used to be on ESPN, I'd stumble upon tennis and I would watch it for a little bit. But now you have to be a tennis fan to go to the tennis channel rather than if it were somewhere else, they might turn me into a tennis fan by having it on other places where I might come to see things. Now, I don't, nobody channel surfs the way they used to back in the day either. But I just think that by having these, golf, who watches the golf channel? Golf fans.
Yeah.
You wouldn't watch golf unless you really were like, oh yeah, that's the Charleston Open is on. I'm going to go watch that. I'm never going to do that. So it caters to fans they already have. And I think that's too bad. That's probably why we don't have a more broad sense of the world of sports like we did 50 years ago.
And also, we don't know any of the tennis players anymore because
Right.
they're not on.
I know Sinner. That's about
I'm
it.
saying we know maybe the top two, but I don't think can any of us name the top women players?
No.
No.
No, I mean I remember Sabalenka, but that's but
That's why
I know
everyone's
Coco Gauff,
Coco Gauff. Yeah, but
Naomi
there's no
Osaka.
American, and we don't pay attention anymore because it's
Yeah.
not on like it used to be.
and that's why everyone's so excited about the Williams sisters
Yes,
playing
because
again.
it brings
you know,
back, yeah,
because
yeah,
they're like, oh, someone I know.
yep,
So that
yep.
that goes to show you, who knows those players? The people who watch the tennis channel.
Yes,
There
But
yes.
you go.
not the rest of us. So they've done themselves a disservice by doing that, but that's just my opinion. Hey, finally, Mark,
Woo!
an ad that isn't you smoking or drinking.
Yeah, that's right. My ad today is with Allstate Insurance, and you're in good hands, which has been their slogan for over 50 years,
Yeah.
You're in good hands. And this ad goes, if you think your 1966 homeowners insurance can rebuild your house in 1976, you're only half right. And they show a house half built with people living inside. It's just basically framed. And I'm thinking like today, that's right because, you know, I rebuilt my house in 2012, 13, and now in 26, after the fire destroyed it, trying to rebuild the house is 3, 4 times as many. What
Wow.
you think is enough fire insurance is not enough. So this insurance ad is so appropriate because it's all relative to your times. The fact that it costs twice as much to rebuild something after 10 years, every 10 years is 2 to 3 times to rebuild something. It still applies today as it applies then.
Yep. You learned that the hard way.
It sure did.
This is your heyday, Mark. Mark the Bird Fidrich finally getting some real time here on Sports Illustrated because he is coming into his own in Detroit.
Yep, it's a cuckoo over a rare ibis, which I think is Latin for rare bird, because he is the bird Hipidrich, and he's started 9-1. He won his first game, lost his second game, and then won 8 straight decisions to go 9-1. And I've told the stories before, but the summer of '76, these Mark Fidrich games are etched in my brain. His first start against the Cleveland Indians, going a complete game 2-hitter, then losing his second start to Louis Tiant and the Red Sox 2-0 out of Carl Yastrzemski home run, but he pitched the difference. The beating the Brewers 5-4, pitching the entire 11-inning game, and then of course beating the Yankees on Monday Night Baseball, which made him an instant star, and then following it up with the shutout against the Orioles at Tiger Stadium that drew over, I believe, over 51,000 people showed up to see him shut out the Baltimore Orioles the following Saturday after the Yankees game. That is nuts, So he had captured, the attention of the country. And there's some great stories in there about like when he was in the minor leagues, like it was either an exhibition game or he was in the minors, but he was in Lakeland, and he realized that he had a protective cup on. So he literally pulled his pants down in front of everyone and removed the cup from his pants. So,
Very much like our boy Steve Lyons.
Yep.
yep, you're right. And the picture of them doing the mound, manicuring the mound, and talking to the baseball. It's just
Yeah, he captured the attention of the country, and for young guys like you, Bill, right?
Yeah, I was in Toledo, Ohio back in '76, and I remember listening to some of his games, and then we got to watch a little bit of one. And he was, other than the sporting news, is Mark Fidrich was the reason I love baseball. He was so fun and so energetic, and he just seemed to love the game and love playing. And every time at the end of an inning, he'd run up and shake the hands of the guy who made the last out of the inning. Just an incredible character, not just being a great pitcher. But yeah, that's one of the reasons I fell in love with baseball with Mark Fidrich.
Yeah, you and a generation of others, that's for
Yeah.
sure. And unfortunately, arm troubles for the Bird came a couple years later, and he was good again
well,
in the next year, but never as good as he was here this first season in '76 when he took the baseball world by storm.
Well, it all started with a knee injury in spring training of 77. He was shagging flies, died for something, and hurt his knee. So he missed like the first, I don't know, 6 weeks of the baseball season. And then he came back and he was at one point, he won 6 straight decisions. He lost his first 2 decisions. Then he won 6 straight decisions, looked like the old bird, was 6-2. Then lost 2 decisions, didn't look right. And then his shoulder, he had an injured shoulder. And it was because of the knee injury. He was overcompensating. And so he missed the rest of the 77 season, came back in 78, pitched 2 complete games to start the season. Everyone thought he was back. And then the arm injury came again, and that was it.
And Mark, is it wrong? Didn't he start the All-Star game with Randy
Yes.
Jones starting the other?
1976. He was the
That's
starting pitcher for the All-Star.
Yeah, Randy Jones was the starting for the National League.
Wow.
Which is really amazing to think about this rookie kid who didn't start a game till May is starting the All-Star game.
It sounds like Mizorowski or whatever it was last year.
If you watch that June game, in June 28th, 1976 game against the Yankees, where he was just in a groove and he'd throw a pitch, get the ball, throw it again. So could you imagine him and Jones going against each other? That
Oh my
could have
God,
been under an
like a
hour.
50-minute
yes.
game.
Oh, no walks in that game, that's for sure.
Joining us now to talk about that great season Randy Jones had is another all-time great Padre. Ted Leitner was behind the mic in San Diego calling Padres games for 40 years, starting in 1980. His first 2 years in San Diego were Randy's last 2 years in San Diego. And yet that began a relationship that lasted almost 50 years. A great friend, and I think it's safe to say, admirer of Randy Jones. Ted Leitner joins us now on the Past Our Prime podcast. Hey, Ted, thanks for joining us today.
I appreciate it, and I'm glad to be here, glad to be with you guys and talk about Randy Jones any single time, any time at all.
Ted, 1976. It's the second straight season that Jones is just having a phenomenal season. 1975, he kind of comes from out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Probably doesn't win the Cy Young because people are like, this is kind of a fluke, isn't it? Well, 1976, he's even better. He's on the cover of SI. Is it safe to say that his success those 2 years put this fledgling organization on the map?
Oh, no question. Oh, no question. There have been writers and articles subsequent to the early Padre days, and they always going into who are the cornerstone guys? Who are the cornerstone guys of this franchise? And obviously, he's it. He's the beginning of those cornerstones that were added later with Dave Winfield and with Tony Gwynn and Trevor Hoffman. Those are the 4 cornerstones of this organization. So he absolutely, you don't, even the great, whether it was Dwight Gooden or others who came along, or Bird Fidrich, he was in that same category of a guy who suddenly sold tickets. And even the great ones, Juan Marichal, whoever it was, they really, Koufax, I don't know if they were actually selling tickets, hard to gauge with the Dodgers because the crowds were always so big, but Randy sold tickets. And it probably was in a number of like 5,000 at a team that was still doing maybe 9,000, 12,000 a game, and he would sell 5,000. That's a big number for a team that's not any good. And I have to look back and think, how many guys, whether Matt Gooden and others, and Fidrich, decent Tiger team, who was so good on a team that was not good, and be so dominant on a team that was not, and did not have great defense. And that's the kind of thing that people don't have a stat for, but Randy certainly had that. But some of the other numbers were just, my favorite in 76 has always been, I looked in last year in both leagues, there were 13 complete games total by all starting pitchers, and Randy had 25 in 76. So those are the kind of things we're talking about. You'll never see that again. No, keep watching and live to 100. You'll never see that again. And just not walking anybody, would not walk anybody. He'd rather loan you money than walk you. And it was an art form. It really was at that time with him, baseball and that pitching, his pitching. It was an art form. It was a science, and it just was simply amazing what he did. And the guys who couldn't do anything, couldn't do squat against him, and he couldn't break as they say, a pane of glass with his fastball.
Yeah, 25 complete games in 76, 18 the year prior, so 43 in 2 seasons. He wins 20 games in 75, another 22 in this Cy Young season here in 76. 600 innings over 2 seasons.
Speaking of what you'll never see again.
No. That would take 3 seasons for the best pitcher now.
Right.
The best pitcher, 3 seasons.
Right.
How did he do it, Ted?
He did it with a sinker that was from another planet, and you just couldn't hit it. And in those 25 games, the fascinating part, and the game is certainly, you guys know this, don't need me to tell you, the game has changed. I mean, there were 4-man rotations back then, and 300 innings was the bellwether. Now, of course, it's not. It's so different. And you got these bullpen games, and they're taking guys out who are dealing, guys who are out there dealing, and they're taking them out in the 6th inning, and they haven't lost their stuff. So the game has changed so much. But the deal with Randy, even no matter what the game was, he would have finished games because the more tired he got, the better action he got on the sinker. So the idea, oh, hey, we got first couple of at-bats, don't worry, we'll get this guy later. We'll get this guy 3rd and 4th at-bat, which the statistics, the metrics nowadays show, and they'll certainly go to the bullpen thinking the bullpen guy be better. Not with RJ, he just came every single time. And back then, that wasn't something that was known. Later, after he retired, he's not going to obviously tell people that while he's competing. It was, the truth was that the more tired I got, and normally somebody get the hook and get me out of here, it broke more. The sinker had more action, and they couldn't hit it. They couldn't hit it anywhere near as well as they did in the first 2 at-bats. And that was a huge part of his secret in doing that. And everybody's always told the story about Pete Rose, who jumped around one time after hitting, obviously, right-handed against him and tried left-handed and said, hey, I'm hitting 178 against him lifetime. I might as well go around and try to hit him left-handed, and grounded out to first base. And of course, I can assure you that Pete knew that stat because Pete told me that stat. Because when Randy had just gotten to the retirement stage, the pregame show on the station that I worked for doing news and then Padres, that was the pregame show was the Randy Jones show, and I was the co-host with Randy, and so I got Pete as a guest when the Phillies were in town in 1980, and as we're walking over across the diamond to the camera, and I'm saying, so you went around the other side against him, huh? And he said, yeah, I'm hitting like $150 against him. And I say to Pete, no, 178 lifetime. And Pete says, thanks a lot. Thanks for telling me. I really needed to know that. So it was just the kind of, some guys wore him out. And guys like Mike Schmidt come to mind, and Mays and so forth. But great hitters, other great hitters, it was just futile. They could not hit the sinker.
Yeah, and one thing I love in sports, it reminds me of Mariano Rivera and the cutter. You knew he was throwing the cutter, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter.
Yes.
I mean, catchers didn't even need to put down a sign, so you knew it was coming.
No, literally, the catcher could probably look up and say, it's coming. It's coming here. Sinker. And all our catchers used to say that about Trevor Hoffman after he had and one time Trevor could throw 95 and didn't have the changeup, but then he dove in the surf down there at Pacific Beach and hurt his shoulder, and he was never the same, and the fastball was gone. He had to determine something else to do. And it was Donnie Elliott, who they got in the McGriff deal with the Braves, who said, I got a fork ball. And they're calling it a splitter now and all that other stuff. But the way I hold it, it's like a fork ball. It'll be a great changeup for you. And that made Trevor Hoffman, and the all-time National League leader in saves. And it's the same kind of thing. Literally, those catchers said, I could yell it out every time to them. Or Hoffy can yell, changeup, coming. And Hoffy I've seen him throw 4 straight changeups. And as our catchers say, you could let him swing twice, and they couldn't hit it. Same thing with Randy. Sinker's coming. I know it's coming. Damn it, I still can't hit it. That's one of a kind. Even back then, with great pitchers, I mean, just one of a kind.
Ted, if you look at Randy Jones, there he is in 1974. He wins 8, he loses 22. There couldn't have been much confidence in him. I know you say the sinker ball, but what was it? All of a sudden, you go from a 22-game loser to a plus 20-game winner?
He says confidence. He says confidence, and he was a little Chapman College in Orange County, and was really good there, really good there. You know what gave me something great pleasure at the memorial at Petco Park that I was asked to give a eulogy for. He had more of his college teammates there than any other group. And that's how close they were. That's what a terrific player he was then. That's how much they respected him then. But in terms of major leagues, they never really thought, and I don't know how much Randy thought, but people in baseball did not think this guy's going to be a number 3 starter. Or I don't think anybody had him as high as a number 3 starter in even a 4-man rotation back then. So what he did, I know, surprised the Padres. It surprised Randy. But when he suddenly realized, hey, man, and his catchers would tell him, you've got great stuff. You've got great stuff. And I don't care if your fastball is 86. You're going to get guys out. And you're going to be a thinker. And you're going to outthink them. And all of those things just kind of locked into place, like you guys said, in 75. And then it was Katie bar the door. He was just unstoppable until he got hurt. And he was never the same after 76, quite frankly. But it was just a joy to watch. And what we loved in looking back, and I went through an era where the games had gone from 2:40 to 3 hours and 20 minutes, an average of 3:10, and in and out of the box, every pitch, batting gloves adjustment, making the walk around the home plate. It was just, which of course they finally realized, we have to do something about this, because our marketing shows in Major League Baseball, people are watching a 3-hour, 10-minute game. We're asking them, how long of that are you watching on television? And they would tell MLB in their research about 20 minutes. And they thought, these games can't go on like this. We can't compete for the sports dollar like that. When Randy pitched, the famous one that Padre fans always talk about, he went against against Jim Cott. And it was an hour and 29 minutes for 9. And during I used to get tears in my eyes. I tell, lefty, you got anything left in there? You never had a fastball, so don't worry about that. If you can throw the sinker, please come back. I cannot have to stare at these guys that are just looking in. We had a guy, Dennis Rasmussen, who doesn't get, because he wasn't a top pitcher, a big left-hander who may have been the slowest, the so-called human rain delay. Yeah. He was so slow that at that time, Tom Werner was our owner, and Tom was the producer, creator of the Cosby Show, the Roseanne Show, and now, of course, part owner of the Red Sox. And he was doing the Babe Ruth movie at that time with John Goodman, and John Goodman playing Babe Ruth. So Tom Werner tells me that Rasmussen comes to him and wants to be the advisor for the motion picture. And Tom says, "Well, I'll get back to you." And then in a conversation with Tom, I said, "You're going to use him? If I use Rasmussen, it's going to be a 3-hour movie." That's how slow this guy is. You think I'm going to have him be my consultant? So with so many guys like that in baseball, just brutal. Randy was a phenomenon even then, when the games were only going 210, 215, 220. It was absolutely amazing, because it was just simply get the ball, throw the ball, get the ball, throw the ball, get the ball, throw the ball. There was no histrionics. There was no grabbing and spitting and chewing and all this stuff. And I always thought during the slow pitcher era, you're taking it easy on the batter. You're letting them get comfortable. You're letting them dig in. You're giving all sorts of time between pitches rather. And Randy didn't do that. You better be ready, man, because here it comes. And I really believe that was important to his success.
Yeah, I was just thinking what Scott was saying. That's like Mark Burley. Mark Burley's just get up there and throw pitches. Hour, 20 minutes later.
No question. No question. And Randy would go against the fast guys, and you could make dinner reservations. The umpires loved him. Everybody loved him. Get out of there. And you didn't have to check and see what time room service closed for late night stuff on the road, because Randy was going to get you home without any question. But he was it hurt me, guys, that late in his life, it was one of those one thing after another from a non-baseball standpoint. It was throat cancer, and it was major spinal surgery. And then he fell and broke his hip 2 months before he died. And he was going through such stuff. But I was so blessed because getting to know him, he was still, like I said, he's still a pitcher. Then I'm co-hosting his pregame show. And by the way, I mentioned getting Pete Rose as a guest. The the first time based out of my respect for him, I said, "Hey, you don't have to run around get guests, Randy. I'll go get the guest and I'll bring them to you." Thanks, Ted. I appreciate it. And then I went, and it was the Giants were in town, and Willie McCovey was still was with the Giants, back with the Giants, I should say, and playing first base. So I go to McCovey and introduce myself, and I say I'm on the pregame show, and he cuts me off and says, I don't have time. I don't have time. So we get somebody else, and then the next day, I'm walking by McCovey on the field, and he says, "Hey, why didn't you tell me it's for Randy Jones? If you told me it's for Randy Jones, I would have been on in 5 seconds because obviously that was Lefty's first baseman when McCovey was with the Padres." And then I found out it wasn't just Stretch; it was everybody. But like I said, Pete Rose, Mike Schmidt, you name the person in baseball. When Carlton had stopped talking and the Phillies were in town, I asked if he would come on. "Hey, how about a little lefty and lefty on the pregame show?" "What are you talking about?" "It's the Randy Jones show." And he came on, even though he was talking to no one. That's one of my favorite stats. He's talking to no one. I said, "Hey, it's not for me. It's for, and I had been in Philadelphia before I came here, and I knew him casually. But you know who I knew better? Tim McCarver. Because Tim, after every time Carlton pitched, Tim had to do all the media because Carlton had stopped talking to the media. So even with just a high and not a relationship, he said, "Oh yeah, for Randy, I'll come on," and he did. And that always stuck in my mind as how much people loved him and how much people respected him.
You know, it's what you when you talk about his great success on the mound, and then you talk about what he's like as a person. Why did all the other ball players and everybody else, including yourself, love Randy so much? What was it about him?
There are guys like that, and there are ones that are not like that. And I think maybe if Randy was a superstar, but he was in his little element in a small college in Orange County, and knew I got the goods, man. I'm gonna be a number one starter. I'm gonna be a star. Maybe his mindset is different, but I think the ones who have to work harder for it, and do that. Bob Scanlon was my analyst on radio with the Padres for 5 years, and Bob was cut by the Phillies, and then cut by this team and that team. And those guys are so mentally tough, but they also appreciate the game and everything about it more than others who are, I'm a star, I'm a lock. I don't have to compete. I'll never forget doing a banquet with Joe Garagiola and I were the MCs. And Tony Gwynn was right in the first row. And Joe said to Tony, "Tony, you ever come in the locker room and check the lineup to see if you're in it?" And Tony said, "No." But of course, Joe did as his level, as his level as a player. But that was Randy. He was on Garagiola's level. That those guys checked the lineup because nothing's a given. Well, nothing was a given for Randy, and then he had success, and then he became so popular because he just flat out was a nice guy. That's the short answer, I think, to your question. And never said no. Never said no, and had nothing in mind to be a broadcaster at the time, though he became that. He had nothing in mind to be a restaurateur, an entrepreneur, which he also became with Randy Jones Barbecue in the ballpark when they started Petco Park and the older park before that, Jack Murphy Stadium on its different names. But he's just one of those guys. His teammates thought the same thing. The fans thought it. The media thought it. He'd never, ever said no. One of my favorites is Hal Clement did the sports on the ABC affiliate while I did it on the CBS affiliate. And this was the time during, George Plimpton and the Paper Tiger or Paper Lion, remember doing what we call reporter involvement, where you went and you worked out or you tried to be at a practice with the football team. So Hal calls Randy and says, "Hey, Lefty, how about I try to hit off you? Are you much of a player?" "No, no." And then he says, "No, but I could hit you, Randy." That was always the mindset of anybody. I'm not a hitter, but I can hit Randy Jones. Grab a bat. You think so? Grab a bat. Get in there because they weren't intimidated by him. He wasn't a fastball pitcher, so they thought, well, it'd be a soft 0 for 5. but I could step in there against him. I'm not afraid. So Randy, of course, says, okay. And they meet at the ballpark. And about the third pitch, Hal actually makes contact. And it goes right back up the box. And Randy has to dance to get out of the way. And Randy throws his glove down, throws his hat down, and walks toward the mound. Hey, damn it. Don't you ever hit a ball up the middle and up the box against me ever again, even for a TV series. And Hal is just frozen. This is so un-Randy like. He's just frozen and got the dry mouth and can't swallow. And then Randy just breaks out laughing, breaks out hysterically, because everybody knows that's not Lefty. That's not him. And Hal said, hey, you had me going there for a while. And Randy laughs harder and harder. That's just Randy.
You know,
That's all.
you can tell how much you love Randy Jones.
Oh, please.
How did your friendship develop, and explain what it was like to have such a great friend in your life?
I'm here in 1978, and he's not Randy Jones anymore, but he's still in the rotation. Then he goes in the bullpen, and it's a magnetism. Some people have that. I don't know why. Some media go to a certain guy because he's a great quote. That was Tony Gwynn, and so different types of guys for different types of things. But in terms of, I need to find a player that everybody likes. And find out what's going on in the clubhouse, what the tenor of a clubhouse is. You go to Randy Jones. That's all there is to it. And everybody knew that, and I knew it within a month. And I was not a Padre broadcaster, as you mentioned. I was just doing television and radio, non-play-by-play for the Padres for 78 and 79 before I joined the broadcast in 1980. But he was the go-to guy. He was the guy. No longer a star. Team's first Cy Young Award winner, as you guys mentioned, first star, put him on the map. Then Winfield came later, and others. But he just had this down-to-earth personality. I want to hunt. I want to fish. My ego was removed at birth, and everybody likes me, and I like them. And you meet people. I mentioned Garagiola. I did 2 years on the Padres pay-per-view that Joe would fly in for Phoenix and do my analyst work. And I would pinch myself every day that I get to work with this man who lights up the booth when he walks in. And I would be coming from a radio show in the afternoon, 3 to 5, and a television segment at 5, and a television segment at 6. And now I'm here for the ball game at 7. And if I walked in kind of glum, Garagiola would say, hey, what's wrong with you? I say, Joe, I got this and that. Hey, Ted, if you're having a bad day, don't let your face know it. You learn from guys like Randy Jones and from Joe Garagiola and from Bob Scanlon, who get cut, come back, get cut, come back, get cut, come back. Why? Because I love the game so much. That's my favorite Tom Seaver line when he got time ready to retire. All these years I thought I had the ball in my hand, but it turned out to be the other way around. That's for those of us included right here with this threesome that love baseball. And that was Randy. He just ate it and spit it out. He was the quintessential, unfortunately, tobacco chewing lefty out there. And I always thought that, and Garagiola said that. Show the fans that you love the game as much as they do. That's all they ask of you. Nothing else. Nothing else. And that's what Randy did. He showed them that he loved it like they loved it, so they loved him.
He pitches in back-to-back All-Star games. He gets his save in 75 and then the win in 76. What did that mean to Randy to be able to represent the National League in those games?
Huge. Because again, you're not at a Cub, Dodger, Yankee. You're not at a glamour franchise. You're not. It's little San Diego, and you're not on the map yet. Really, you got Randy Jones, and that's basically it. Before you got Dave Winfield, the Padres. That was the map. When Randy won the Cy Young, when he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, what was he, 16-3 at the All-Star break, whatever it was for that SI cover that you were talking about, that was simply huge. And it is bigger when it's not one of those glamour franchises, because the fans kind of get a myopic view, and they get tired of being the little team in San Diego where you can't grow. You got Mexico to the south, you got the ocean over here, and you got Orange County in LA to the north, and you got the desert over here. So you're surrounded. You are what you are. You're little San Diego. And so when the Chargers do well, it means so much to them. when they had the Chargers, and then when they leave, it's a death in the family, and it's again another somebody's kicking dirt on a small market baseball team after the Chargers go, and that's exactly what Randy represented. We got Randy Jones, and later it was Dave Winfield, a guy drafted by the NFL and the AFL and the NBA and the ABA. I mean, just an amazing athlete of our time, and that gives that kind of fan, which is a great fan, but they know they're not going to be, nobody's doing stories on Padre teams or Padre fans like they do in the big markets. That's all. But those guys give you something to hang your hat on. And then later, the big deal was our first ever big name free agent was Steve Garvey. And to get him and take him away from the hated Dodgers and the glamour franchise, that was simply enormous in a market this size. But the first guy, the explorer, the guy who broke the ceiling, that was Randy Jones.
So Randy pitches in that second All-Star game in 76. And then a few weeks later, I believe it was August 4th, he's driving, he hits a telephone pole, and it's a miracle he isn't killed. I guess 30 stitches is nothing to sneeze at. How much did that take away? Maybe was that a factor in when the decline began for Randy?
He always said, like guys like him always do, I'm not injured. These are old school guys. These are old school guys. And I've seen them through my career and had a bunch of them. Clayton Richard was not a great pitcher. Clayton Richard was just the toughest pitcher I ever saw in my life. And he wouldn't even discuss injuries, that kind of thing. Clayton, how's your back? Why are you asking? Well, Bochy said your back is no. There's nothing wrong with my back. There would be no excuses, no mentioning stuff like that. I saw that prototypically with Junior Seau when I was doing the Charger play-by-play, and Junior was playing, and Junior had the Samoan warrior ethos that he would come in if he needed treatment, and a lot of times he would just eschew the treatment and not go, but it was really serious. He would come in at 5 o'clock in the morning and tell the trainer, meet me at 5, I'm coming in, and don't tell anyone. Because the Junior being seen as with an injury or saying he had an injury or letting it affect him was against the Samoan warrior ethos. I've been around so many athletes, not too many Junior Seaus. So seeing guys like that, and then you see those kind of guys in baseball, I don't really know what you're talking about. Your manager said your shoulder's bad. My shoulder's fine. And Randy was one of those guys. So he always said the accident had no effect. I think it did.
Mm-hmm. And he was back on the mound 6 days later, which
of course,
is to me unbelievable.
That's Randy. I mean, old school and all the other cliches, but that's exactly what he was. That's another reason that fans love guys like that, because I'm sorry, not everybody's like that in the modern baseball game, and not everybody's like that when Randy was pitching in the 70s.
When he's done pitching, he becomes a coach and a teacher, and like Barry Zito and Joe Musgrove come under his guidance. What kind of a teacher was he, and the influence he had on future players?
Every one of those guys that I ran across, and when I would have Zito or whomever on a post-game radio show, we would not multiple times, but one time, per year, and ask about, tell me about Randy, and tell me about your lessons. And every one of them laid it right at his feet about how much he gave them confidence, how much he taught them. You don't have to throw 90 miles an hour and all that stuff. And Zito at the end with similar types of injuries was relearning to pitch and talking to Randy, and became a different pitcher so he could get a few more years by using his stuff and being smarter. And that was Randy. Randy was outsmarting batters way back in those years. And you had some batters, man. You remember the All-Star games back then. You knew who you were facing in those years, and they were just great players, and it did not matter. And Randy just was one of those guys, no matter who it was. It literally, like, I don't know who they would have throw batting practice. What lefty on their staff would throw batting practice, because nobody could emulate him. Nobody could emulate him with throw the sinker. So I don't remember. Obviously, they had batting practice. Obviously, they had a staff member throw a lefty against their team, anticipating Randy. But it's one of those things like when the wishbone came in. You couldn't really run the wishbone in practice because you didn't even know what the hell they were doing. You didn't know how you defend it. You had no idea. and the triangle offense with the NBA. It's hard to duplicate the offenses and defenses that haven't been around, and it was impossible to duplicate Randy Jones when you knew he was starting.
You mentioned the All-Star game, Ted. Not only were they great players, but back then they tried.
Oh,
They were
man.
trying to win the game. They did not. They took that game very seriously back 50 years ago. So for him to come up with a save and a win in back-to-back years,
I know.
just amazing.
No, it was a different game in so many ways. The fraternization now that goes on did not go on that way. It was, we're going to beat these guys. And it wasn't just Rose that had that attitude that people talked about and talking up the National League. It was everybody that way. There was a great story of it was Don Drysdale and going past the American League batting practice, and then Mantle came out of the cage, and Double D goes up to him and says, "Hey, big fella, where you want it today? Here or here?" Meaning his ribs or his side. It's an all-star game. But back then, no, it wasn't just, like I said, Rose and Fosse and all that kind of stuff. Nowadays, people would be just apoplectic at somebody trying to hurt somebody or hurting somebody and trying to get the home plate, whatever he's trying to do. And that's just one or two of how many changes have been there in the game. But you're right. Those guys were out there to win an all-star game. They were not going to chat and say, "How's your wife and how's the kids?" A totally different game.
Rookie cards of baseball, basketball, and football stars are iconic pieces of American history, and they have been outstanding investments over the last 50 years. Now, key issues of Sports Illustrated, professionally graded and encapsulated by CGC, have emerged as an exciting alternative to trading cards. ThePit.com is the leading online exchange for investment-grade sports magazines. General Manager Mark Humphreys offers Sports Illustrated first cover editions featuring stars like Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Derek Jeter, Ken Griffey Jr., and so many more. July 12th, 1976 had the eventual Cy Young Award winner from the Padres, Randy Jones, on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Mark Humphreys is here to tell us if this issue has gained any traction in the last 50 years. Mark, I have to think anytime it's a Cy Young winner, there might be some interest in this issue.
I figured that there would be a few graded examples of this magazine. In fact, there have not been any magazines graded. And to give context, let's talk briefly about how many magazines have been graded from very popular issues in this year. In 1976, there are a total of 8 magazines which have been graded by CGC, the industry leader, at least 10 times. The first of the year is the swimsuit edition with the Sylvander twins. And then Super Bowl 10 with Lynn Swann. That's been graded 13 times. The swimsuit edition was graded 16 times. Muhammad Ali, March 1st, had been graded 10 times. A couple of baseball covers, Mike Schmidt and George Brett, making their debuts on Sports Illustrated in May and June, respectively, have been graded between 10 and 20 times. And collectors love those first covers, as we've talked about. Then 2 Julius Erving covers. One in May with 17 that we talked about earlier, where Dr. J carves up the Nuggets was the cover. And then one that we haven't talked about yet, when the NBA and ABA are merging and Dr. J appeared with Dave Cowens on the cover. That one's been graded 11 times. So I've just mentioned 7 newsstand Sports Illustrateds that have been graded by CGC. In other words, that some collector has decided it's worth $30, $35 minimum to get it encapsulated and graded. I'm not going to tell you which magazine has been graded even more than that. You're going to have to You're going to have to guess for right now. We'll mention it in a future show. But there is a magazine from 1976 that's been graded 33 times. And if you have a view on that, put it in the comments if you're seeing this on social media. So back to Randy Jones. This issue, it resonated with me when I researched it. I wasn't yet subscribing, wasn't yet getting the copies of Sports Illustrated from my neighbor. But the next year, 1977, I started collecting baseball cards, and I have the 1977 Topps Randy Jones All-Star card because he was the starter in the All-Star game. And the card is a real classic where I think he's mid-pitch and his hair is kind of flowing out even more than Don Sutton, who I was more familiar with. And so that image will always be imprinted on me. And I came to understand his statistics and how fabulous he was in 75 and 76. He pitched exactly 600 innings in those 2 seasons combined. And he had 43 complete games, which of course is unheard of today. The game has changed so much. And so I find Jones fascinating in how he demonstrates how much the game has changed because he was a junk ball pitcher. But for 2 years, he was very successful with it. He was second in Cy Young voting in 75, and then he won the award the next year. In 76, he averaged 3.4 strikeouts per 9 innings. In 315 innings, he had 93 strikeouts. It was really working for him through the All-Star break. And then it didn't work after the All-Star break. He was a threat to win 30 on this cover, the Confounding Randy Jones. That was the subtitle. But of course, he finished with only 22 wins, and he went 6-11 in the second half of the season, a losing record in the second half of the season, and a losing record in all 6 of his seasons afterwards. So what happened? According to the bio, he had a tear in his forearm in the final start of 76. He needed surgery, and he was really never again the same. So this magic lasted for a couple of years, and I don't know if we'll ever see anything like this again. But for me, even though the magazine is not prized by other collectors, it's such a fascinating conversation piece because it poses these questions. What has changed in the game that has eliminated the junk ball pitcher? And could a crafty pitcher like this be successful if he was given the chance in today's game? I find Randy Jones just fascinating in so many ways.
Only thepit.com offers competitive buy now and sell now quotes on graded magazines online, as well as many of the most popular modern PSA graded rookie cards, including Shohei Ohtani, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Nikola Jokic, and Steph Curry. Trade sports stars like stocks at thepit.com. We're talking about one of the greatest all-time Padres ever, Randy Jones, with another one of great all-time Padre, Ted Leitner, a Hall of Famer for the Padres. What did that mean to you, Ted, for going into the Padres Hall of Fame?
It was huge. And going back to Randy, and he didn't expect to be a number 1 starter in the major leagues. He did it. He chewed it. He ate it up. He spit it out. And I was a football, basketball guy and a TV anchor guy in the news, and never had thoughts of being a play-by-play guy. Had thoughts of being a broadcaster. I remember being a vendor at Yankee Stadium and Shea Stadium. I remember walking around, and the Harry M. Stevens law was, if you're vending and you stop, you're fired. If you're stopping, you better be selling something, not just watching the game. If you think that was easy on my Yankee teams, where Roger Maris is at bat, and then Mickey Mantle's in the on-deck circle, then Yogi Berra is in the hole, it was not easy to not stop and watch, But I, not just watching them to my left, I'd look up at the press box, and I'd see Mel Allen and Red Barber and Joe Garagiola up there doing the Yankees with Red Barber at that time. And then later I'd watch Jerry Coleman when he retired, no way of knowing that for the next 35 years later on in my life, I'd spend 35 years as Jerry Coleman's partner on Padre baseball. So it's just, I never expected to be a baseball guy like I was in football and basketball, and to do it, to work with an amazing war hero like Jerry Coleman, who was like Randy Jones, so beloved, so beloved. Randy, I saw, and those two saw each other every game during all that time that Randy was here, and every single time that Jerry called him Leo,
Mm.
which is his middle name. No one else called him Leo except Jerry, and I loved every second how they would rank each other. And Jerry would say, I'm 67 now, and I can hit you, and I can turn your fastball back around on you." And just the constant flow of that was just, it's just, because all this business of baseball is no longer the national pastime, and it's not. It's not the great TV game that the NFL is, but it's baseball. It's just baseball, And I never thought I would be among this company, meeting my boyhood heroes, including Jerry Coleman. So to answer your question in less than 7,000 words, I never thought of the Padres Hall of Fame. And I was blessed to go in. I was blessed to be inducted the same class with Larry Lucchino, who I thought should have been commissioner of baseball, one of the most brilliant baseball people of all time, who impacted the game so much. But just to go in with Larry, may he rest in peace, was huge.
You mentioned him because I got to interview him a number of years ago, Jerry Coleman, looking over a war hero. He battles in 2 wars, but when he played with DiMaggio, he played with Mantle, he played with Barrett. Did he give some fun stories about those guys back in the day?
Interesting. Great question. He would tell you stories about his playing days if you asked. He would never tell you war stories, even if you asked. That's Tom Brokaw and The Greatest Generation, that book about these amazing guys who won the war and kept us free and took care of Nazism and the Japanese peril at that time, and never told war stories. War was hell, and Jerry must have told me 1,000 times, because I would talk about Jerry, about his war experiences. When? Starting with the first Persian Gulf War. And then people suddenly asked me, how come you, and that's when he was always called the Colonel. That was his nickname in San Diego, because he was Lieutenant Colonel in the Marine Corps when he retired. And so people thought, literally, until the Persian Gulf War, they didn't know why he was the Colonel. So they would ask, is that kind of like, just an unofficial thing, like Colonel Sanders? Not quite. Not quite. We're talking Navy Cross and about 30 other medals, and the only ball player who left baseball to fight in World War II and in the Korean War. And to show you that this was the greatest generation, we're in Milwaukee, and they know that Jerry's there. So on their quiz on the ballpark, on the scoreboard in Miller Park at that time when it first opened, there's a quiz saying, what ball player is the only one that left twice to fight? And it's Joe DiMaggio, Yogi Berra, Bob Feller, Jerry Coleman. And so help me God, as I sit here, Jerry elbowed me. You read that? Yeah. Who is it? And I said, you. Yeah? Yeah. I thought it was Bob Feller. No, it was not. And Ted, and they were like this, Ted Williams. And because of that, I got to know Ted Williams so well because of Jerry, that he didn't know. He thought it was Ted Williams, but Ted didn't fight in World War II. Jerry got in the end of World War II and flew the Dauntless dive bomber that the Japanese were just so fearful of. It made this screeching noise as you went straight down at the aircraft carrier or whatever it was you were bombing. And you go straight down, just screeching noise that scared them. And then you drop your bombs, and then you hope to hell you pulled up in time to get up and get out of there. That's what Jerry Coleman did. And then he flew the Corsair. Again, you're just one pilot. That's it. Nobody else. In the Korean War, he was at K2 in Korea. I believe Ted Williams was at K1, but Ted was an instructor in Korea. Jerry was flying missions. And it's just the honor of being with him. And he would always tell me, don't be talking about me on the air. Only the ones who didn't come back They're the heroes. And I would say, Jerry, no, because you guys did your job to make sure that others did not have to come back in a flag draped coffin. You are heroes for that alone. No, I don't want to hear it. And I didn't know for 20 something years of the 35 we worked together that they had Jerry Coleman Day at Yankee Stadium when he returned from Korea. 60,000 people. Mel Allen's the MC. And his a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, sends me a picture of home plate with all the players lined up with both teams and Mel Allen at the microphone. And then I see a guy in a dress Navy uniform. And I say, isn't that Admiral Bull Halsey? Yeah, that's Bull Halsey. So I go to Jerry that day when I get to the ballpark from the TV station. Jerry, was Bull Halsey at Jerry Coleman Day? Yeah, why? That's what I'm talking about. Like RJ had his ego. We better take this ego out after delivery. Let's take it out at birth and it won't be there. Admiral Bull Halsey, the fullback at the Naval Academy, is why they called him Bull. You got Nimitz and you got Bull Halsey, who won the Pacific War for the United States Navy, Jerry, and you don't tell your partner that he was there to speak at your day? No, because Jerry that was just something that happened. No special thing. It's all my guys that served. They were all there, and all I did, like them, was do my job.
But Ted, the greatest thing about talking to someone like yourself that has so much experience is you throw out names and then you go past it because you're telling a great story. You said you were great friends with Ted Williams.
Yes.
Tell me about that friendship and give us an in-depth look at Ted Williams that we don't get when you read about stories about him.
Boy, oh boy. Fellas, I should have asked you before we started with podcasts and so forth, and now I'm starting to do one myself. What's your language your language rules on this hookup?
None. Go right ahead.
We're good?
Yeah, we're good.
We're just among friends? Okay.
Yes.
The last day of the 1949 season, Jerry Coleman bloops a little flare out to right field, and the Yankees win the final game of the season against the Red Sox and win the American League and go to the World Series. For the next 50 years, every single time we're together, me, Ted Williams, Jerry Coleman, luncheon, banquet, charity, what have you. Those two are going at each other like it's going to break out into a fist fight. And Ted would say, that little duck fart, you blooped over there. You got mirrors in your house, Jerry? You should take the mirrors out so you can look at the mirror after hitting a ball like that, like an amateur that wins a World Series. Aren't you ashamed to have even hit that ball? And Jerry would say, Ted, if you can come close to hitting the cover off the ball, that's how hard I hit that ball. He said, you're full of shit. There's no way in the world. No way in the world. So this goes on literally every single time we're together. Now Ted has a stroke. He's at a convalescent hospital in Escondido, north of where I'm speaking to you now. And I go up there with Bobby Brown, who was the third baseman on Jerry's Yankee teams, who had become Dr. Bobby Brown, the cardiologist, and another wonderful hero that I was in awe of. I was in awe of all these guys. Me, Bobby Brown, Jerry, we go up and we ask the nurse, is Ted Williams awake? Well, he's had the stroke. He's in a coma, but it's not full-time coma. He comes in and out of the coma. So why don't you guys go in there? I know who you are, and see if he wakes up, and maybe you can have a conversation with him. We go in. So help me, guys. We go in. We're standing at the foot of the bed, maybe 10 minutes. Ted's eyes flutter. His eyes open up. He looks at the three of us. Normally you'd say, uh-oh, I must be in trouble if you guys are here for a visit, or what the hell are you guys doing here? He looks at all three of us, and he looks back to Jerry, and the first thing out of his mouth coming out of the coma is, that fucking hit. That's word for word. That's Ted Williams. That's how he competed. That was never out of his mind. And as much as there was, they say, there's always a lot of teasing, always a lot of truth in teasing. He was teasing, but he was not teasing. That ate at Ted for the rest of his life, that the Yankees beat him in that game, beat the Red Sox in that game. And that's the way it was with those guys. And to meet these people as a broadcaster, If I don't get in the Padres Hall of Fame, it doesn't matter. The money was good. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. Because to meet your boyhood heroes, amazing men of that greatest generation who fought in the war and don't talk about it and have such great respect and played the game with respect. And you didn't, stand there and flip your bat. You didn't dig in against Bob Gibson or as happened once at a Padre game, Daryl Thomas was digging in with his head down, and Gibson walked halfway to the plate and said, "You comfy? You comfy now? Because I'm going to bury your ass right there." That's what baseball was like when I mentioned the changes in it. There's so many of them. But with those guys who respected each other, respected the game, and played it, for an average salary of $5,000 for 20 years because they had no union. But to meet people like that and pinch yourself. I sat at Larry Lucchino's house in La Jolla at a party after a Padre game with Ted Williams and Tony Gwynn talking baseball for 2 hours.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there with goosebumps thinking, how the hell did this schnook kid from New York, me, who used to sit in the upper deck for $1.20 in old Yankee Stadium or be in the box seats only when he was a bender, could be with Ted Williams and these other people. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And that was Ted, a competitor that when he said, I want people years from now to say, when I walk down the street, there goes the best damn hitter that ever lived. And I had the opportunity, I'm getting choked up thinking about it, saying to Ted, hey, Splinter, you did it. That's what they say. No, I mean, they were Hank Aaron. And no, Ted, that's the consensus, that you were the best. That's just an honor that I will take to my grave. And it was just such a blessing.
San Diego has such a rich baseball history. The San Diego Padres of the old PCL.
And Ted played for them.
Right.
Yeah.
And to me, the Padres are mustard and brown. I mean, I'm glad they went back to those uniforms. It's
Me
so
too.
distinctive.
Me too.
Talk about what the Padres mean to that city. It's a military city. There's a lot of connections to the military. There's a lot of connections to that mustard and brown. What do the Padres mean to San Diego?
It is simply huge, and it has grown, of course, directly with some winning. It has grown, of course, with the losing of the Chargers to Los Angeles, which had happened, with basketball when the Rockets left and went to Houston. It was most people don't know, they were the San Diego Rockets. And there was a flap with the arena and all this unfortunate stuff that did not have to happen, but happened. We lost a couple of ABA clubs. We lost a WHA hockey team. And then we lose the San Diego Chargers. That's like a death in the family. It just is after 54 years. So the Padres have grown and grown and grown. And this coincides with a man that I considered a friend, though he wasn't a great fan of my style, quite honestly, to show you that we were friends, but he was not in my corner when it came to, I really like your play-by-play, and that's Peter Seidler. And that's Peter, because Peter would say to me, I like analytics. I love the metrics. I love that stuff. And I would say, Peter, you need to have that stuff and know that a guy is 0 for 30, but he's hit the ball hard 25 times. That matters in terms of how you handle that guy in a slump. And it's important that these numbers, man, who you're going to get, acquire or trade, or acquire with trade, who you're going to give all that money to. It's important to you, but my audience doesn't care about all those analytics. Well, Peter says, I do. So I said to him, being a smartass, Peter, how do you compute WAR? And he says, I have no damn idea. But it was the golden rule, as I told him, hey, I understand that. I'll try to change. It is the golden rule, the guy with the gold rules. And Peter, you got the gold. But he was just like we talked about. Peter loved baseball so much. He's part of a baseball royalty with the O'Malley family. His grandfather was Walter O'Malley, and those kids were brought up at a ballpark, and they had to work their way up in every little job. And he and his brother Tom, who still works as a vice president for the Padres, they worked at every minor league, at every job, at every minor league club that were associated with the Dodgers to work their way up. They were not given a vice presidency ever with the Dodgers. I have such respect for the Seidlers, and I'm just in shock that we lost Peter at 63, just finishing a home and 3 little kids and he was just spending money because he beat cancer twice. And it was suddenly we have a Steinbrenner who's a great guy saying, let's spend the money. Let's go for it. Let's get San Diego a winner. And that's what's happened to San Diego now, to a club that in the 29th largest TV market outdrew the Mets, the Yankees, and the Phillies last year, second only to the Dodgers. That's how much this team, this franchise is loved, and how much Peter is and was loved.
Lightning strikes his answers try. Buzzers ring, chaos in the air. Trivia time, truth or dare.
True or false? Two-time Academy Award-winning actress Emma Stone is a big Padres fan.
True.
It is true.
Yes,
and
it is.
It is because her husband, Dave McCary, was born and raised in San Diego.
I only know this because they were at a ball game last year at a suite, and they had a shot of them up on a big scoreboard, and the crowd applauded. And without that shot, I would not have had a clue about that. But yes, it is true. This is true.
It's true.
Now, Johnny Olson, tell him when he wins. Yeah. What do I get? A car?
What does he win, Bill?
A car? A trip to Hawaii?
Our gratitude?
Yeah. Hey, Ted, I tell my kids all the time, practice being in a good mood. And if you perfect that, you become someone like Ted Leitner. I mean, you're just infectious. And
I appreciate that so much.
You can tell the authenticity just comes through, and only in America, could a guy from the Bronx end up Mr. Padre. So, talking Padres history with you, as good as it gets as far as I'm concerned. Thanks for bringing Randy Jones and that whole era back to life for us. I knew nothing about Randy Jones other than the numbers. And now I really feel like I got an inside look at him, and that's thanks to you. So thank you for coming on Past Our Prime.
I appreciate it. I enjoyed it very, very much. Thank you, guys.
Billy, what else is going on in baseball besides the bird?
I'll make this quick because a lot of guys, when they transfer, they play college football when they're in college, like Butch Hobson did. He was a former Alabama quarterback. He was, for me, I loved him as a third baseman. He didn't play all that much, but I enjoyed him when he was with the Red Sox. But at Alabama, he threw no touchdowns in 11 games, threw an interception, but he did rush for 2 touchdowns as a Crimson Tide, and then decided to go into baseball.
Wow.
Yeah.
Made the right call, probably.
He did, but I just, just the thought, what a career. You get to play with the Red Sox, obviously a historical organization, but you start by playing quarterback at Alabama.
Yeah.
Wonder if he knows Joe Namath.
While Mark the Bird Fidrich was getting all the attention for beating those Yankees, Kansas City's Doug the Real Bird quietly matched Fidrich's 8-1 record by beating Bill's Angels 5-4, one of the better overlooked storylines of the week. Doug Bird, I remember that guy.
Me too.
All right, next up, from down under to up top, Jan Stevenson, a 24-year-old Australian in her third LPGA season. She's the hottest player on tour in 1976 in more ways than one. Fourth on the money list with over 47,000 bucks made so far, 2 wins, and a top 10 finish in 9 of 15 tournaments. Bill, she was something else.
She sure was. And she ended up with 16 wins and 3 majors, was Rookie of the Year. I think Mark and I were talking about this. She was the LPGA's marketing star because of a picture of her in a bathtub where she appears to be naked, just surrounded by golf balls. So when you think of someone like that, you think, man, she's got the life. But then things sort of started to go bad. She got in a really bad car wreck in 1987, which kept her out, and she was actually having a great season. Her father died in 88. Her brother-in-law died in 88. Then in 1990, after she's come back from all this stuff, she's mugged coming out of a Miami Heat game. Mugged, thrown into the crowd, beat up, and her husband just sat in a car and watched. So she divorced him. She came out of that, had to reinvent her whole swing, because she had no use of her left hand after the mugging. Whatever they did ruined her left hand. So she redesigned her swing, but she decided she'd become a golf course designer, went to college, took classes, designed a golf course in Australia. But she wasn't done yet. She helped found the LPGA Senior Tour with 4 other female golfers. She turned it into the Legends Tour, so they'd be accredited. And then what'd she do? She won the inaugural LPGA Legends Tour event. What an amazing woman, because I always remember her as being really pretty and a good golfer.
Mark, much more than just a pretty face.
Yeah, no, she was a really good golfer, but it's interesting though how the whole, sex appeal stuff like dominated the head of the tour wanted to market this sex appeal stuff to attract male and female voters and not voters, fans. But 1977 Sports Magazine, there was a shot of her without a bra. It was never intended to be pub, you know,
Maybe.
shown.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it ended up on the cover of the magazine. And that
Wow.
her went up. And then of course in 1986, she had the bathtub. But then people forget what a great golfer she was because of this whole sex appeal thing. She bursted onto the scenes, dominated. I mean, if you wanted to just go across and see the stuff of how many wins she had on the LPGA tour, if you look at the top 10 lists of golfers, that have won on the tour. I think Kathy Whitworth is, I think, the first. I think she had 88 wins on the tour, 6 majors, and Annika Sorensen was third, and Nancy Lopez. But if you scan down the list to find Jan, which, by the way, I'm scanning as we're speaking right now, she's 37th. Okay, so she won 16 times, but she also won 3 majors. So it's quite an achievement, for someone that had to overcome a lot of stuff that happened to her in her career.
Let's move on, talk a little boxing. Papa Benitez knows best. Mark, Wilfredo Benitez becomes the world's youngest boxing champion ever.
Yeah, at 17 years old, he becomes a champion. Is that crazy?
Still a junior in high school.
Yeah, wow.
I know. He would be a champion in 3 different weight classes: light, welterweight, and light and middleweight. But 53, 8-1 in his career, 31 knockouts. He's a defensive fighter, is what they call him. But yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, and you look at him; he's already got a mustache. I didn't have a mustache at 17, but great fighter. But his career kind of ended a little premature.
I mean, I guess that's going to happen when you are a world champion at age 17. You can't go forever. But Bill, I think when we talk about some of the greats of that era, he sometimes gets overlooked.
He does. I remember watching him fight Sugar Ray Leonard, and that's in the time where they used to go 15 rounds. He lost to Sugar Ray Leonard, but 15 rounds. And then he comes back in his next 3 fights, which are 2 wins and a loss, against Carlos Santos, Roberto Duran, and then he lost to Thomas Hearns. All went 15 rounds. And then afterwards, he had some brain issues, but from what I've read, he's gotten to the United States and he seems to be doing a lot better. But man, he was just one of those guys that got lost because back in the 70s and going into the 80s, there were just such fantastic lightweight fighters. Lightweight, meaning not heavyweight guys that weren't the biggest ones. But man, what a great fighter. I loved watching him.
So when he wins the title, think about this. He brings his high school buddies with him to watch him fight. Think about it. You're in high school and going, "Hey, what do you want to do tonight? Hey, why don't you come down to the Olympic Auditorium and watch me box?"
Right.
It's like, yeah, it's just, I'm going for the heavyweight title. Nothing big.
Exactly. We'll go out and get a soda after this.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Or a malted back in the day.
Whistles blow, legends grow. For the record.
For the record, Mark.
Free agent running back Ed Marinaro, who was with the Vikings, is now signing with the New York Jets. And 1971, he rushed for he became the first running back to rush for 4,000 career yards during his career at Cornell. And he set 16 records, but he was the runner-up to Pat Sullivan in the 71 Heisman Trophy. And he didn't have a really big NFL career, but he played for the Vikings, the Jets, and the Seahawks. It was over by 77. But he did have a role in acting. And he became an actor. He did a lot of TV series, but he's best remembered for a recurring role he had as a cast member on Hill Street Blues, which was a dynamic, groundbreaking cop show in the 1980s that also featured another former athlete, Mike Warren, former UCLA basketball player.
Yep. Bill, you spoke about Kurt Thomas.
Yeah.
What about Carl Thomas?
Well, Carl Thomas didn't take the advice I'd give to anybody. Please stop flying balloons over the ocean. Carl Thomas attempted to become the first solo Atlantic balloon crossing. He needed to be rescued because he crashed. He survived a severe storm. He jumped 200 feet from his balloon into the ocean, which broke his ribs, and he suffered a lung injury. And then he spent days adrift without food or water. I'm not saying that the Hindenburg wasn't nice when it was going. That went down, and another guy in a balloon trying to get across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess we all have our wish list, our bucket list.
Yeah, I guess mine does not consist of a balloon going from Santa Monica to Maui.
It doesn't even consist of me going from Santa Monica to Catalina.
Yeah.
I mean,
If your balloon lost air and you hit the water, would it just sink or would it float, the basket?
I know I would sink.
yes, I think we all would.
Yeah.
And then we'd get eaten.
Doesn't sound like a great plan.
No, stop flying balloons across the oceans.
I got one. Pro football, the NLRB, National Labor Relations Board, found the NFL guilty of 15 unfair labor practices out of 32 charges in connection with the 1974 contract negotiations and players' strike. NLRB Judge Charles Schneider ruled that then union president and two-time Past Our Prime guest Bill Curry, one of our favorite guests, and Vice Presidents Kermit Alexander and Tom Keating were cut, waived, or traded because of their union activity, and he ordered them reinstated with back pay. So the NFL owners not playing nice with the people who were going up against them in early labor negotiations over 50 years ago. I think most owners kind of still play that way.
Yes.
Labor negotiations.
Faces
in the crowd. Jenny Rich. Billy, who is she?
She was a young gal who won the U.S. Intercollegiate Harness Racing Championship for the second straight year. And then you ask, why does that matter? Because harness racing was overwhelmingly male back in the day. She helped break barriers for women, becoming a winner right there. She also won on an unfancied horse, or a horse that had a losing record. Quite impressive for young Virginia Rich.
Nice. So, Mark, I don't have to ask who your guy is.
Terry Francona. He's a junior at New Brighton, Pennsylvania High School. He's the son of former major leaguer Tito Francona. He paced the Lions to a 14-0 record section championship. He batted .769. That's pretty crazy. That's like almost 8 hits every 10 at bats. And he compiled a 3.33 ERA. He pitched 3 shutouts, 1 no-hitter, and 2 one-hitters. And Terry was born the same year I was born, in South Dakota, which I did not realize. Anyway, he played in the majors, had a decent career from 1981 to 1990, but his really mainstay was as a manager. He became then the manager of the Phillies, the Boston Red Sox, the Cleveland Indians / Guardians, the Cincinnati Reds now. He's also been a coach, a very successful, baseball manager. He's won over 2,000 Major League Baseball games as a manager.
Yep, he will be in Cooperstown one day.
Yep.
One of the best managers of the last 50 years for sure.
Right. And he has a really nice head of hair in this picture, as a junior, which he doesn't have now.
19th hole, where the readers take the shot.
19th hole. Mark, start us off.
Jay Van Hoot of San Jose, California. He says, on Sunday, June 20th, the Chicago White Sox lost their 10th straight game. Earlier this season, they won 10 in a row. Is this some kind of record for consecutive wins and losses by a team in a season? Or does another team have this dubious distinction? Well, SI said, no record is kept officially. However, the Yankees did win 18 straight and then lost 9 in a row in the same season, 1953. But this year, 2026, another team in Chicago, the Cubs, they've had a 10-game winning streak and losing streak in the same season. So, Mr. Van Hoot, no, it is common. Or not common, but it has happened.
Yeah. I think the Cubs have 2 10-game winning streaks this year. And one
10-game losing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like Dear Abby, Mr. Van Hoot.
Well, he's probably dead. Bill, who picked off this week?
Well, we don't know about Richard Pickering either. He's from Decatur, Georgia. I don't know if he's alive or dead, but he might still be alive. But he's angry now. He's not happy. He says, I must respond to Kent Hannon's article, Chop Off the Old Block. While I applaud 8-year-old Freddie Simons for his interest in karate, I feel that his seniors have made it the worst possible mistake in awarding a youth the grade of black belt. This demeans all of the martial arts and is a slap in the face of every adult holder of the black belt. It is not the young student who is at fault here, but he should wear a brown belt until he is an adult and then be awarded his grade of black belt. Here is hoping that this practice will not persist.
They're just giving away black belts.
Yes.
They mean nothing.
Now, let me ask, and mind you, I'm not advocating child abuse. If an 8-year-old came up and he wanted to beat you up and he said he was a black belt in karate, how nervous would you be?
You know, I always think that, and I would be like, no, not at all. But there's got to be some 8-year-old in, Brazil that, looks like he's 13 and just has all these moves that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always think that no way could they, take me out. But
they would know where to hit you. They would know where to hit you. They probably go low.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Your knees.
All they have to do is hit you in the kneecap and bend that kneecap the other way and you're gone. So it doesn't matter how big or strong a guy is. There's certain parts of your body where it doesn't matter. If you poke somebody in the eye, it doesn't matter how big or strong they are. That's it.
What kind of karate is that? That's Three Stooges
that's called
karate.
Poking someone in the eye.
If you hit someone in the Adam's apple,
Mark, you're thinking of Three Stooges.
No, Adam's apple. The game is over. And if you hit someone in the kneecap or in the private area, game over.
You do not want to fight Mark Hoffman. He fights.
No, fight
dirty.
Man. I fight dirty, man.
Mark uses the old moves.
There's the great scene in
the whole time. Whoop, 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 whoop. Yep. Yeah.
There's the great scene in Deadwood where they have the two guys fighting, the two bodyguards fighting, basically. And the one guy is losing, and it looks like he's going to die. And he just takes his finger and shoves it in the guy's eye and pulls out one of them. And that ended the fight the other way.
Oh, well, that's a lovely way to wrap this show up.
The guy who loses his eye and loses the fight is a famous stunt guy.
So a show nobody watched with an actor.
No, Deadwood has a cult following. No. Do not say that about Deadwood.
Do not lose.
You might not understand
this right now is going to push us over the top. It is shocking to the human soul.
Yeah, there's a lot about this show that's shocking to the human soul.
Yes.
That's a wrap on the July 12th, 1976 issue of Sports Illustrated. Randy Jones, Borg, Everett, the Bird, and Ted Leitner. Can't thank Ted Leitner enough for helping us bring it all to life. Thanks for listening to Past Our Prime. We'll catch you next week. For Bill, for Mark, I'm Scott. Thanks, guys.